The wind howled like a banshee as the storm enveloped the ship, the waves crashing and splashing against the hull of the ship, threatening to send it to the depths of the ocean. The crew of the ship, a ragtag bunch of misfits from the Fallout universe, were desperately trying to keep the ship afloat. Captain Harold was at the helm, his grizzled face set in a grim expression as he fought to keep the ship steady in the raging storm. The waves were so large that at times, the ship seemed to be airborne, only to crash back down into the sea with a tremendous roar. The crew had been on the ship for days, it seemed, and the storm had been raging for the entire time. Water was leaking in from the sides of the ship, and the crew had to constantly bail it out with buckets. The storm had caused some of the ship's sails to be shredded, and the crew had managed to rig up a makeshift sail using sheets and blankets. Despite their best efforts, the ship was being battered by the waves, and water was flooding in from all sides. The crew was exhausted, and morale was low. Most of them had been on the ship since it had left the harbor, and the storm had taken a toll on them all. Suddenly, there was a loud crash, and the ship shuddered as it was struck by a wave that seemed to have come from nowhere. The crew rushed to the sides of the ship, trying to secure the sails and the rigging. The ship was taking on more and more water, and the crew was starting to panic. Captain Harold shouted orders, trying to keep the crew focused on the task at hand. He knew that if they didn't get the ship under control, they would be lost at sea. The crew worked frantically, trying to secure the sails and the rigging, but the storm was too powerful. Suddenly, there was a loud creaking noise, and the ship lurched to one side. The crew scrambled to the sides of the ship, trying to make sure that the ship stayed afloat. The ship was slowly sinking, and there seemed to be no way to stop it. The crew was in despair, and they all knew that their time was running out. They were about to give up hope, when suddenly, the storm seemed to abate. The waves began to die down, and the ship slowly stopped sinking. The crew breathed a collective sigh of relief, and began to make their way back to the harbor. The ship had been battered by the storm, and it would take some time to repair the damage, but the crew was thankful that they had made it through alive. They were all exhausted, and all they wanted to do was go home. Captain Harold was the last one to leave the ship, and as he stepped off the deck, he looked back one last time. He had brought his crew through the storm, and he was proud of what they had achieved. He smiled to himself, and with a slight nod of his head, he turned and walked away. He knew that the crew was safe now, and that was all that mattered. Yay, the end. Oh right, yeah, I have to do this stuff now. Like, comment and subscribe. And please watch my other videos and comment ideas on stories.